Well, Scott, thank you so much for taking your time for this interview. As we start, can you talk a little bit about your current role in the company?
Sure. So, Misha, I've been here as Chief Marketing Officer at Offensive Security for all of 6 weeks now. So
Congrats.
I am very much, thank you. I'm enjoying it immensely. I've had the good pleasure and fortune to inherit a great team of marketers, cybersecurity marketers, and also join a really great leadership team here at OffSec, led by our CEO Ning Wang. And so I couldn't be more pleased. This is, as I'm sure you know, an incredible brand that has been around, for the better part of a decade and a half, and has really become synonymous with high quality cybersecurity training and certification. And so I lead a team of really great marketers. We're focused on brand and messaging and positioning and demand generation and product marketing and everything you would expect to see, and then some in a marketing shop.
Awesome. And can you talk maybe a little bit about your career trajectory, some of the prior roles?
Sure, absolutely. So, really, prior to my role here at OffSec, although I took a little bit of a detour at another organization. Prior to that, though, for the better part of 2.5+ years, I was Chief Marketing Officer at Keeper Security, which is an enterprise password manager plus also a consumer password manager app. And so I joined that company relatively early on in its B2B go-to-market kind of strategy, and I was brought on to help grow significantly our B2B offerings and revenue, while at the same time continuing to drive more incremental or modest growth on the consumer side of our business. And so, as folks may know, Keeper, along with top competitors like LastPass or 1Password, we started out basically as a consumer password manager or digital vault, and so and Keeper was really no different. The way Keeper sort of differentiated ourselves, in addition to kind of our security architecture, was in our kind of go-to-market and how we thought about acquisition, particularly for consumers. And we went heavy in on acquiring consumers on the app stores, whereas some of our other primary competitors focused on web acquisition. And so, as a result, if you were to go to either Apple App Store or Google Play, you will see we had at Keeper significantly more downloads, significantly more reviews, etc. And yes, that was a function absolutely of the quality of the tool, but also the fact that we prioritized the app stores as an acquisition lever for consumer. And so as a result, we resourced pretty significantly app store advertising, app store optimization, more so than even web acquisition. And so I was there for 2.5 years as Chief Marketing Officer and had a great run. Prior to, and that was my first entree into cybersecurity. And some cybersecurity folks may not even contemplate an EPM as cybersecurity, and I certainly understand that it's obviously in the IAM space. But prior to that, I spent the better part of 15 or 20 years actually in marketing roles in healthcare IT organizations. So principally B2B software as a service companies that sold either to healthcare providers, whether they were physician practices or hospitals and health systems, or healthcare payers. So here in the States, health insurers like Aetna and Humana and Cigna. And so that's the better part of 20 years. And then before that, I was in various marketing roles at a bunch of different companies, although principally in B2B as well.
Interesting. It's quite a career path. And in your current role, we talked to a number of marketing executives, and uh, they tend to define their role, kind of their objective, not always kind of in the same way. Some of the definitions that I heard, they would say, our job is to make sales easier. So that's kind of one. Another could be, we're really focusing on the first steps of the customer journey, problem aware, category aware, solution aware. So that's where we spend most of our time. Kind of from your perspective, what kind of, if we were to give a one liner of what is that you do, what is that your objective, what would that be?
Yeah. So I learned a long time ago, businesses basically have two things to do: create value and communicate the value that they create. And so my job and the job of my team is the latter, right? And so we have to, as marketers, it's simple but not easy, right? We have to communicate here at OffSec to both potential students and consumers and individuals, as well as businesses and enterprise and government entities. We have to communicate the significant value that this company has created, and customers alike have accrued over the better part of a decade and a half. And so that's our job, right? We have to communicate that value. We don't have to oversell it. We don't have to describe it in ways that aren't legitimate or real. We simply have to do the brand and justice. And yes, and that means ultimately, sure, making sales easier, greasing the skids, right? It means helping to educate target markets and our buyer personas to the extent that they need education, right? These are smart folks, right? And the fact of the matter is, neither OffSec nor our competitors, whether they're in the training space or in the tools and tech space of cybersecurity, we're not really teaching CISOs, right, anything. They know, right, because they live it. So this to me is not so much an issue of problem identification. CISOs, I know, right, feel the pain that we aim to help solve right here at OffSec, as it relates to cybersecurity talent gap, cybersecurity training, right? Where am I getting my people from? There are 600,000 right open cybersecurity roles, right? There's been 0% cybersecurity unemployment for years and years and years, right? And so that's the problem. Everybody gets it, right? There are, though, different ways to kind of skin this cat and address that problem. Mm-hmm. And so I think, while this is not always going to be a kind of product or solution first approach, ultimately, and sooner rather than later, probably, right, we have to deliver a compelling value proposition that says, yes, you know the problem, you have a multitude of ways potentially to solve it. We are one of them. Here's our case, right, for why we think it makes sense for you to go in this direction.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. And then, would you say kind of CISOs, are they usually the champions and they bring you in to help educate their team, or the users at large, or maybe both?
Yeah. So it's, I think if you asked me this question maybe in 6 months, I would have a slightly different answer. And so the way I would answer the question today is based on kind of our historic or legacy go-to-market motions inside of B2B or enterprise, which has largely been in kind of a individual / teams motion, right? Kind of a land and expand, that if we have a couple of folks who have come to us presenting themselves as like an individual learner, but yet they're doing it in the context of their current role, or if they're doing it in an attempt to gain a leg up, right, in their career, then ultimately that was how we tended to kind of further penetrate into an account or in an enterprise through kind of an individual champion, right, of our community. And so I think we're going to continue to lean into that motion to help build out our B2B enterprise go-to-market strategy here. I think the thing we're going to layer on, though, to that is what we would call in marketing, right, kind of a top-down, right? So it is to go a little bit higher, whether it's the CISO level or maybe CISO -1. And additionally, because of what we do, we believe that a head of training, a head of development, is also a really critical buyer and influencer persona for us as well, because right, those training budgets can sit in a couple of different places, right? And so yeah, and so that's the motion that we're going towards in terms of supplementing what we have done historically, and then hopefully we kind of capture as much of it as we can through both methods. Yeah.
Certainly, it makes sense. So it's kind of like bottom. You mentioned it's bottom up. It's individual contributors, kind of self-guiding, self-selecting, but kind of then it's an opportunity for you to reach out and kind of lend and expand. But also, there's probably a motion to engage head of training and maybe senior cybersecurity executives once this beachhead is established. And kind of zooming out a little bit, kind of looking at, I guess, marketing strategy. It's cybersecurity in general is such a incredibly rapidly growing field. You mentioned the shortage of cybersecurity professionals. It seems every time I go to TechCrunch, there's yet another company raising hundreds of millions of dollars, a unicorn valuation. So as a space, it seems to be exploding, but also marketing is also, it feels like it's changing. In the past, I know inbound was in vogue, and then it was live events, RSA, Black Hat, Gartner. Then with COVID, everyone is remote, so webinars was a big thing. What is working for you now?
Yeah. So we have a tremendous organic social following and by extension community, and so we really lean into that, and so relative to kind of word of mouth, elevating the brand, driving direct website traffic, right? It tends to be driven from the community, from our social followership, and we try to engage pretty significantly, regularly, with our following, with that network and with that community, and we'll be doing more going forward to really even more fully engage that community than we do today. I would think, it's really no surprise that we're trying to figure out the optimal mix, just like everybody. Figure out the events mix or the field marketing mix between in-person now versus virtual, and third-party events. Really, and PR and analytics, and so so we're trying to figure out and how to optimize.
Certainly.
A lot of a lot of traffic, buying subscriptions, or contact us for submissions in a B2B. A lot of it comes from organic search, and so I know when I was a keeper, and certainly at the advent of COVID, right, a lot of companies shifted their event spend to other places, and oftentimes SEO was the recipient of that kind of newfound wealth as a result of in-person events going away. And I think we're going to continue here to kind of lean in on organic search. And it's not just throwing up content for no other purpose than to drive traffic and hope that once we get them to the site, we can convert them. It literally is trying to understand as best we can, to the extent we can, what matters to the folks who are coming to our site, and doing the best we can to create relevant, valid content that scratches their itch. And by virtue of doing that, we will ultimately reap the SEO rewards from that, So it's not about trying to trick anybody's algorithms. I really believe that this game around organic search and SEO, by developing really great content that addresses what folks are actually searching for and what they find interesting, and not leading obviously with a product sell.
Certainly. Well, it seems kind of continuing this theme that the space is getting busier and busier, and also some of the channels were locked out of events, and some companies leaning into organic search, other companies are leaning more in outbound, I know, email and phone, and every channel is getting more and more crowded, so to speak, and then the response rates are dropping. So it's some of those challenges. Let's say you have a crystal ball and you can see into the future of what will be some of the top issues for cybersecurity marketers 6 months from now, 12 months from now, in your view?
Yeah. And I think those issues are going to be felt largely across all of B2B marketing in particular. I think from where I sit, just as though there is this cybersecurity workforce gap, there is also in particular a B2B growth marketing, product marketing, demand gen gap. And that's not going away in 6 months. It's not going away in 12 months. This is easily the most competitive marketing job market I've seen in my career. And that's not going away. And so I think probably my biggest challenge as a CMO, kind of non-marketing challenge, is how to attract and retain the best talent, how to ensure that offset employee value proposition, that our opportunities and career growth and trajectory that we offer folks, and the ability to do the kind of work that we do here and will continue to do here is what we're going to lean on. But here, everybody's going to do that, and so everybody gets it, and so it can't just be like a race to the top, because sooner rather than you can't afford it, and good on the candidates, I've heard horror stories from a CMO's perspective, about what some candidates are doing now in terms of juggling multiple offers simultaneously, and again, good on them, bad on CMOs in terms of being able to to sort of find the right talents. And so now that opens up the question, what's, given that externality of a highly hyper competitive marketing job market, what's the right model, to staff and to resource the various essential and critical marketing functions, maybe we can't do it all in-sourced, maybe it's got to be a hybrid model, in-source, outsource. Maybe that outsource model is freelancers. Maybe there's agencies, supplementing. And so these are things that, I and I know other CMOs are trying to figure out. It just used to be a lot easier to solve these problems by putting out, by crafting a job posting and then sitting back and watching what happens. And you do that today, at least my experience and what I see, it's crickets, because a lot of good folks are really happy where they're at, and they're ultimately commanding top dollar to make a move.
And they're getting that top dollar, it seems like.
They are.
It's
Good on them.
excellent. Well,
Yeah.
Scott, I know we're coming up on time. Last question. This year, for some reason, RSA and Gartner are scheduled to be at the same time. For you, is it RSA? Is it Gartner? Is it neither? What's your take?
So the one word answer for us in 2022 is neither. But that has more to do with offensive security than it does either of those two organizations or events. I have previously, as CMO at Keeper, have sponsored and exhibited at both of those events. All I will say is that the scale of those kinds of events has not been in kind of the wheelhouse of OffSec from a marketing channel and tactic perspective, right? This is not a company that historically has gone about exhibiting at major cybersecurity or InfoSec industry events, right? And because I think of the legacy, right? Like, it wasn't until really within the past couple of years, even, Misha, that we've really leaned into B2B and enterprise, and some of that was as a result of building out our direct sales organization. Some of that was tied to the launch of our subscription platform and model, and our learning platform that enables administrators or sysadmins to administer and provision our content and exams internally. And so as a result, historically, no, we haven't done either. I will tell you that we've had conversations with Gartner even in the last couple of weeks, looking to 2023, whether or not we do it, TBD. I would put RSA in that category as well.
Certainly. Awesome. Well, Scott, again, thank you so much for taking your time for this. This was excellent.
My pleasure.